When you see a 2x4 go through a 10-inch thick concrete wall, you realize that, that could be you.
Tonight, hear one Central Oregon native's story of survival after he faced last night's devastating tornadoes in Nashville. And we'll have your local updates on preparing for the possibility of coronavirus here on the high desert. But first, the votes are in on this Super Tuesday. The latest on winners, losers, and delegates right now on Newschannel 21.
Now, from Central Oregon's news leader, this is Newschannel 21 at 11.
Good evening, I'm Lee Anderson. Maine is still too close to call, and Joe Biden's taken a narrow lead in Texas. They're the last of 14 primary elections on this Super Tuesday. Here's where the delegate counts are right now. Biden's in the lead with 423. Bernie Sanders topped 300 with his victory in California late this evening. He also took Colorado and Vermont. President Trump's re-election campaign suing the Washington Post for libel. The campaign states the newspaper defamed the president at a re-election rally in North Carolina last night, citing two opinion pieces the paper published last year. Both were about the campaign allegedly benefiting from Russian assistance. Last week, the campaign sued the New York Times for defamation over an op-ed titled "The Real Trump-Russia Quid Pro Quo." At least 24 people are dead tonight after tornadoes ripped through Middle Tennessee last night. People there woke up to trails of wreckage and a massive task ahead to comb through it all in search of survivors. Well, one of those survivors was a man who grew up right here in Central Oregon. Jacob Larson joins us now. Jacob, you spoke with him this evening. How's he coping with all of this?
Lee, luckily both A.J. Cross and his fiance are safe tonight after riding out the tornado in her apartment.
I first heard Bob say on the weather that Nashville had had a tornado, and I just dove for my phone. My kids are there.
Ted Engstrom, a Bend native and owner of Sunday Guitars, had quite the wake-up call this morning when he realized his son, who grew up here and now lives in Nashville, was right in the line of a tornado.
Tornado warnings went off, and, I'm just a typical dude. I was like, you hear those all the time or whatever.
A.J. Cross left Central Oregon and moved to Nashville just over 8 years ago to pursue a career in music. But last night, A.J. and his fiancée, Krista, saw a tornado rip right through her apartment.
She has this really, really big window out, like, the front of her apartment. And the glass, it was like it got shot out of a cannon.
After taking cover in the bathroom, A.J. said the tornado moved through quickly, but the damage was unbelievable.
Look out, there's glass everywhere. There's just stuff everywhere. So I start walking through the glass like a really smart person. I got my feet are all tore up, but anyways, got my shoes, and I look out the back door, outside, and it was like complete chaos outside. It looked like Ground Zero, or it's like The Walking Dead kind of thing. I'm just glad we're safe, because when you see a 2x4 go through a 10-inch thick concrete wall, you realize that, that could be you. And it's just eye-opening.
Both AJ and Krista's cars were totaled and an apartment building destroyed. And now Cross and his fiancée are left to pick up the pieces, all while getting ready for their wedding. But AJ's dad's planning to help them out by holding a fundraiser that will coincide with Sunday Guitars' 10th anniversary celebration on March 21st.
I mean, they lost everything. They lost their cars, all her belongings. His belongings are at his apartment, but we're just going to do a fundraiser for Krista.
At the end of the day, AJ says the main thing is they made it through alive and unharmed, and that's all he can ask for.
I'm very glad. It's really devastated a lot of people in town, so just to, like, if you I mean, you know, watching the news and things like that, you see videos and pictures of it, but it's like, that just shows the image. It doesn't show the emotion and the actual feeling people have, because it truly affects lives. Things like that truly affects lives.
And on top of getting married in just a few months, AJ plans to release new music in the coming weeks. He hopes this will be the next step down the path to success in the music industry. Jacob Larson, News Channel 21.
Well, luckily, cleanup efforts won't be marred by more bad weather there. Nashville's set to see partly sunny skies throughout the end of the week, much like what we have here in Central Oregon. And Katie Zuniga joins us now with our first look at our forecast. And Katie, you're saying this mild temperatures and conditions will stay with us.
Yes, Lee, we're actually looking at tonight being very similar to the last couple of nights. Now, there is a little bit of a discrepancy here in Redmond, so I believe the temperature is a little bit warmer than that right now, but for the most part, we should see those high 20s to low 30s for all of us here in Central Oregon overnight tonight. So we'll be right at or just below freezing, which is pretty similar to where we were last night, just a few less clouds in the sky. And the other thing that will continue for us are the winds in the same manner that we've had them the last few days, about 5 to 10 miles per hour. But we're looking at Sisters right now having our strongest winds at 11 miles per hour. Tomorrow, if our winds pick back up, it'll be anywhere from 5 to 10. It's just going to shift out of the north. Here's a look at our satellite and radar overhead. The clouds have, for the most part, kind of cleared out of the region. We're looking at just a few clouds here or there. Looks like there's a tiny little blip of snow that's showing up right here at Mount Bachelor. We are supposed to get some snow tonight, but really it's looking like the weekend before we could get anything that's even measurable. So for the next couple days, we're looking at mostly sunny and warm. Tomorrow will be just a tiny bit cooler potentially than we were today. Friday will warm right back up. We will have a few clouds in the sky, but most part we are going to remain dry at least until Friday, and that's when that slight chance for rain returns to Central Oregon Friday and into Saturday. I'll time that out for you coming up in your full forecast. Lee, back to you.
A quick note before we move on, we have now just learned Joe Biden has won the Democratic primary race in Texas, taking Super Tuesday's second biggest prize. Maine, again, is still too close to call. Well, moving on now, our airlines are cutting back on certain items to prevent the spread of coronavirus. A flight attendant in Redmond said they're not handing out shared items like neck pillows, and they won't refill drinks. They have to throw away plastic cups after a single use. The flight attendant also told us they're not being given gloves to wear for the same reason. They'd have to keep replacing them. Starting tomorrow, St. Charles Health System will begin restricting the number of entry points at each facility here in Central Oregon. Before entering, you'll have to sanitize your hands. Anyone who's ill will be asked to wear a mask, and people who are sick but don't need medical attention may not be allowed inside. And Oregon health officials urge folks not to panic and instead take precautions. Kendra Kent visited an Oregon senior center to see how they're addressing the virus.
Once a month, a group of music lovers gather at the Beaverton Library to share passions for playing and singing. Paul Barton enjoys attending these song circles, but this time he considered staying home instead.
I'm kind of afraid to go out.
With more cases of the deadly COVID-19 coronavirus popping up in the Pacific Northwest and in Oregon, Barton says he worries about getting sick himself.
Well, I am a senior citizen, so yeah.
He's trying to use as many precautions as possible.
I got quite a bit of hand sanitizer several weeks ago, so I'm all set with that.
And the National Council on Aging is urging older Americans to take caution as the coronavirus and other viruses can be particularly hard on the elderly. According to the CDC, it's estimated that 70 to 85% of seasonal flu-related deaths happen to people 65 and older.
We know that people with compromised immune systems and those of advanced age are at a higher risk.
That's why Hollywood Senior Center Executive Director Amber Kern-Johnson is monitoring coronavirus reports closely and trying to keep one step ahead of germs.
We've increased our cleaning to daily instead of 5 times a week.
They've posted these flyers too and have formed a special task force here at the Senior Center to keep on top of the latest information and recommendations.
And we don't want to create unnecessary fear, and we don't want people to stop participating and engaging and receiving the benefits that they get from being part of our organization, but we want to make sure that everybody stays safe.
Out in the public, it's the balance between joining in and choosing when to sit out.
As time goes, I might restrict my activities.
Oregon's newest Supreme Court justice spoke today at both Central Oregon COCC campuses. Justice Adrienne Nelson's the first African American on the state Supreme Court. She's one of two featured speakers at the college's Season of Nonviolence, speaking on her life experiences and the importance of representation. Just before her speech tonight, we asked what the most important message she wanted to drive home was.
People focus on what the other is instead of seeing how we're all connected, that we're all part of one country. We're all Americans, and even though people have different walks of life, we all need to work together to live.
Justice Nelson was appointed to the Supreme Court in 2018. New concerns over plastic mulch used by some hemp growers have come to the forefront. Hear from one man affected by the problem in just a few minutes. And we're now 2 days into the metered roundabout experiment at Brookswood and Bond and Bend. But first, details on a brush fire that briefly burned out of control today. Stay tuned.